My family told everyone I was a failure. I kept quiet at my brother's engagement dinner. Then his fiancée turned to me and murmured, "Wait, you're the one who..." The entire room fell silent. Even my mother was speechless. For years, I was the black sheep, the dreamer, the one they barely saw. But the night my brother announced his engagement, my meticulously guarded secret, a multi-million-dollar tech empire, was finally detonated, and the look on my family's faces? Absolutely priceless. That lavish engagement dinner at Bluebird, with its glittering chandeliers and hushed opulence, was supposed to be another perfect night for my golden child brother. The air, thick with their usual unspoken expectations, felt different that evening. It hummed with an impending storm, though no one else seemed to notice. I'm Alara Sterling, 32, and for the past 5 years, I've been quietly pouring every ounce of my being into building my tech company, Nextech. My family? They just thought I was wasting my potential, frittering away my talent on computer hobbies. They had no idea. Growing up in Highland Park, that perfectly manicured suburb north of Chicago, meant living under a constant, suffocating microscope of expectation. My dad, Arthur Sterling, wasn't just a surgeon, he was the surgeon. The one other doctors called when things got messy. My mom, Eleanor, commanded courtrooms as a corporate attorney who, quite literally, never lost a case. And then there was Noah, my older brother, years ahead of me, the golden child who followed Dad into medicine without a single misstep. Our home was beautiful, yes, but it felt less like a sanctuary and more like a never-ending evaluation. Dinner wasn't just for eating. It was for reporting achievements. Mom would kick off most evenings with, "So, what did everyone accomplish today?" Noah always had something jaw-dropping: perfect test scores, science fair victories, prestigious hospital volunteer hours. When my turn came, my answers never quite measured up. I built a website for fun. I announced one night at 15, genuinely beaming with pride after teaching myself HTML and CSS over a weekend. "That's nice, honey," Mom replied, flashing that proud but vaguely dismissive smile that always felt like a cold shower on my enthusiasm. "But shouldn't you be focusing on your debate team preparation? Colleges look for sustained commitments, not hobbies." Dad would nod along, already turning to ask Noah about his advanced biology project. The message was crystal clear: computers were toys. Real achievement happened in operating rooms and courtrooms. My bedroom became my sanctuary, my escape. There, I could dive into programming languages and tech forums without judgment. While Noah's walls were adorned with framed academic awards, mine were covered in printouts of code and sketches of app interfaces. I'd stay up until 2 a.m. learning Python and JavaScript, then drag myself through chemistry class the next day. Not that my parents ever noticed my exhaustion, unless it somehow impacted my grades. When I was 16, I developed a program that helped organize my school's massive annual fundraiser. The event coordinator, Ms. Davison, was absolutely amazed when my software cut their planning time in half. "Your daughter has a remarkable talent," she told my parents at a school function. "Oh, Alara has many interests," Mom replied diplomatically, as if discussing a fickle child. "But we're focusing on getting her law school prerequisites in order." Law school? I wasn't even planning to apply, but they'd already decided my future. It felt like my entire life was a script they were writing, and I was just meant to play my part. My junior year brought the regional coding competition, and it became a real turning point for me. After months of preparation, I qualified for the finals with an inventory management system I'd built. But the competition fell on the same Saturday as Noah's medical school acceptance celebration. "We're so sorry, sweetie," Mom said, not looking particularly sorry at all. "But your brother worked his entire life for this. You understand, right? Maybe next time." My heart ached, but I went anyway. I competed alone. The only student without family support in the audience, and I won first place. I wasn't just good, I was exceptional. The judges, professional software engineers, told me I had natural talent and vision beyond my years. I came home clutching my trophy, a quiet, defiant triumph blooming in my chest, only to find our house bursting with relatives, celebrating Noah. My achievement warranted a quick, "That's wonderful, dear" from Dad before he returned to toasting my brother. That night, something inside me clicked. A deep, quiet resolve hardened in my core. I decided then and there that I would succeed on my own terms, without their validation. I would build something they couldn't dismiss or minimize, something that would force them to see me. Senior year meant college applications, and with them, the relentless parental pressure to apply to Ivy League schools with strong pre-law programs. Instead, I quietly applied to state universities with excellent computer science departments. When my acceptance to Illinois Tech arrived, complete with a generous merit scholarship, my parents reacted as if I'd announced plans to join the circus. "You're throwing away your potential," Dad said, disappointment thick in every syllable. "Your test scores could get you into Yale Computer Science." Mom, her voice rising with disbelief, exclaimed, "That's not a field for someone of your capabilities." What they really meant was, "That's not a field worthy of a Sterling." Noah, home from his first year of medical school, even tried to mediate in his well-meaning but utterly condescending way. "Maybe it's just a phase, Mom. Let her get it out of her system before law school." I left for college that fall with my parents' expectations still weighing on me, but also with a lightness I hadn't felt before. Finally, I could immerse myself in what I loved without constant judgment. What my family called failure, I recognized as the first exhilarating step toward finding my own path. College was liberation. At Illinois Tech, I wasn't the daughter squandering her potential on computer games. I was Alara, the student professors singled out for her innovative approaches to programming challenges. For the first time, I found myself surrounded by people who spoke my language and genuinely valued what I could do. During sophomore year, I met Chloe Davies in my advanced programming class. While most students struggled with the final project, Chloe and I finished it in half the assigned time and, just for fun, added extra features. We started grabbing coffee after class, staying until the campus cafe closed, lost in conversations about technology and its untapped potential. "The healthcare system is broken," Chloe said one night, her laptop open to an article about medical communication failures. Her own mother had been misdiagnosed 3 times before finally receiving proper treatment for lupus. Doctors can perform miracles, but they can't communicate with each other or their patients effectively. That conversation sparked something profound within us. Over the next week, we sketched ideas on napkins and whiteboards, envisioning a platform that would revolutionize how medical information flowed between providers and patients. By semester's end, we had the skeleton of what would eventually become Nextech. Summer break meant returning home where absolutely nothing had changed. At family gatherings, the first question relatives asked Noah was about his medical residency. The first question they asked me was when I was finally switching to a real major. I started giving vague answers about studying technology, which allowed conversations to move on quickly. "Computer stuff is getting popular," my uncle would say with a dismissive wave. "I'm sure you can find some entry-level job when you graduate. Maybe IT support." What they didn't know was that Chloe and I were spending every free moment building our prototype. We worked from her parents' garage in Chicago, a space they generously cleared for us. Her family brought us sandwiches and eagerly asked questions about our progress. The contrast with my own family couldn't have been starker. It was like living 2 entirely separate lives. By junior year, we had a working beta version. We entered entrepreneurship competitions, winning enough prize money to file patents and incorporate our business. A professor connected us with Dr. Vivian Lee, a frustrated hospital administrator who became our first advisor and, eventually, our first paying client. "This could transform patient outcomes," Dr. Lee told us after seeing our demo. "How soon can we implement a pilot program?" Meanwhile, at Thanksgiving dinner my senior year, my father cornered me by the dessert table. "Eleanor and I have been talking," he said, using my mother's name in that way that always signaled a united parental front. "We're concerned about your job prospects. Noah can help you get an administrative position at his hospital." Something stable while you figure things out. I took a deep breath. Actually, Dad, I'm working on starting a business. His laugh wasn't cruel, no, it was worse, utterly disbelieving, a dismissive scoff that echoed every doubt I'd ever had about myself. A business? Alara, be serious. You need experience before you can think about entrepreneurship. Get a real job first. That was it. That was the last time I tried to share my professional life with my family. It hurt too much to have something I poured my heart into treated as a childish fantasy, something so insignificant it warranted laughter. Chloe and I graduated and moved into a tiny apartment in Chicago's South Loop. We lived on ramen and coffee, coding until our eyes burned, taking side gigs building websites just to pay rent. Our first office was a corner desk at a co-working space we could barely afford. Slowly, agonizingly, Nextech gained traction. A small angel investment from one of our competition judges allowed us to hire our first employee, a brilliant developer named Leo. We landed a contract with a regional medical center, then another with a network of outpatient clinics. When I called home, conversations remained superficial. Work is fine, I'd say when asked. They never pressed for details, assuming fine meant I was just getting by in some entry-level tech support role. At Christmas that year, Noah announced his engagement to a pharmaceutical sales representative. My parents beamed with pride while relatives asked about wedding plans, imagining a perfect future for their golden son. Later, my mother found me alone in the kitchen. You know, Alara, she said, refilling her wine glass, Noah's friend Ben is single. He's finishing his residency in neurology. I could arrange an introduction. The subtext screamed at me, loud and clear, at least you could marry success, Alara, if you're clearly incapable of achieving it yourself. What my family didn't see was our user base growing exponentially. Hospitals reporting reduced errors and improved patient satisfaction. Medical journals were beginning to take notice of our platform's real-world impact. We need to talk about scaling, Chloe said one morning, spreading investor meeting invitations across our desk. We can't keep up with demand. By the time I turned 26, Nextech had 30 employees and had raised $5 million in venture capital. I had moved into a modest but beautiful apartment overlooking Lake Michigan and could easily afford to pay off my student loans. Still, when I visited my parents, I drove my old college car and wore simple clothes, allowing them to maintain their narrative about my struggle. It wasn't entirely about proving them wrong anymore. It was about protecting something precious from people who had never valued it. I wanted success on my terms, not as a concession that my path was valid. The distance between my two worlds grew. In one, I was a rising tech entrepreneur whom industry publications were beginning to notice. In the other, I was the daughter who had failed to live up to her potential. The cognitive dissonance was sometimes overwhelming. The email from Memorial Health System arrived on a Tuesday morning in April. I read it 3 times before calling Chloe into my office. They want to implement Nextech across their entire network, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. 27 hospitals in 3 states. Chloe practically collapsed into the chair across my desk. That's the largest healthcare provider in the Midwest, I finished. We'd been building toward this moment for years, but actually reaching it felt surreal. The contract would multiply our revenue tenfold and establish us as a major player in health tech. Within hours, our phones were ringing with calls from other hospital systems, all interested in what Memorial had seen in us. The following month brought our first acquisition offer from a larger tech company, $30 million. Chloe and I sat in a sleek conference room, listening to executives twice our age explain why we should take the money and work for them. It's a generous offer, Chloe said as we walked back to our office. It is, I agreed, and we're turning it down. We both knew Nextech was worth more than money. It was about building something that actually helped people, something that mattered. We weren't ready to give up control. 2 weeks later, venture capital firm Sierra Partners offered $30 million for a minority stake, valuing our company at over $100 million. This time, we accepted. The investment would allow us to expand without losing our vision. When the press release went out, I requested that only my first name be used, Alara, co-founder and CEO. The articles usually showed Chloe's photo beside a silhouette with my name. It wasn't about hiding, exactly. It was about controlling my narrative. Don't you want recognition? Chloe asked after an industry conference where I deliberately kept a low profile. You've earned it. I do, I admitted. Just not yet, and not from strangers. What I couldn't articulate, even to Chloe, was my complicated relationship with validation. I wanted my family to see me, truly see me, but I wasn't sure I could handle them taking credit for my success or minimizing it once it became undeniable. I needed this to be completely mine before I shared it. Besides, there was something powerful about building an empire in silence. In tech circles, I was becoming known as the ghost founder, the brilliant but camera-shy woman behind Nextech's revolutionary platform. The mystery only enhanced my reputation. The profile in TechWorld magazine came next. They wanted photos of both founders, but I negotiated. Just Chloe's clear image, and me photographed from behind, looking out over our growing office. The article praised our innovation and leadership without delving into my background, just how I wanted it. At 28, I was a multimillionaire on paper. I bought a stylish condo in downtown Chicago, but kept it minimal and unassuming. When relatives asked about my apartment, I described it vaguely as a small place with roommates, allowing them to believe I was still struggling. My circle of trust remained tiny. Chloe knew everything, of course. My assistant, Maya, understood the family situation after organizing one too many declined invitations to sterling family events. And my therapist, Dr. Albright, helped me process the conflicting emotions of success without recognition. "What are you waiting for?" Dr. Albright asked during one session. "What would make it the right time to tell them?" I considered the question seriously. I wanted to be so undeniable that they can't explain it away. So big that they can't take credit for it or tell me I just got lucky. And I want to be completely at peace with never getting their approval. So if they still don't give it, I'll be okay. Dr. Albright nodded thoughtfully. "And are you working toward that peace?" "Every day," I said. And I was. Nextech wasn't just about creating innovative technology. It was about creating myself, separate from the expectations that had defined my early life. The irony wasn't lost on me that my brother had followed our father into medicine, yet I was the one revolutionizing healthcare. Nextech was now being used by over 200 medical facilities nationwide. Studies showed it reduced communication errors by 43% and improved patient satisfaction scores by 38%. Every few months, usually after some family gathering where I'd been subtly pitted, I would pull up our company valuation and user statistics, not from vanity, but as a reminder that external validation wasn't the measure of worth. The numbers helped ground me when old insecurities threatened to resurface. Then came the rumors of a potential acquisition by Horizon Health Technologies, one of the largest health software companies in the country. Their initial outreach was tentative, feeling out whether we might entertain an offer after turning down several others. "They're talking $200 million minimum," Chloe said after an exploratory lunch with their development director. $200 million. A figure that would make headlines. A figure that would be impossible for even my achievement-oriented family to dismiss. Part of me wondered if this might finally be the moment to step out of the shadows, but another part hesitated. Was I really ready for my two worlds to collide? What would it mean to suddenly be seen by the people who had spent a lifetime looking past me? I didn't have much time to consider these questions. Life was about to force my hand in the most unexpected way. The call from my mother came on a Sunday afternoon as I was reviewing quarterly projections. "Alara, wonderful news," she announced without preamble. "Noah and Hannah have set a date. Labor Day weekend. They're planning an engagement dinner next month at Bluebird. You'll need to clear your calendar." Bluebird was Chicago's newest Michelin-starred restaurant, impossible to get into without connections or a 3-month wait. Clearly, Noah was pulling strings through his hospital board contacts. "That's great," I said, genuinely happy for my brother despite our complicated relationship. "I'll be there." "Wonderful," my mother's voice shifted to a more critical tone. "And Alara, it's a very upscale event. Perhaps we should go shopping for something appropriate. I noticed at Christmas your wardrobe is still very collegiate." I glanced down at my designer silk blouse and tailored trousers. An outfit that had cost more than most people's monthly rent. Not that my mother would ever know. "I'll find something suitable, Mom, don't worry." "Well, if you're sure." The doubt in her voice was unmistakable. "Hannah works for some big technology company. Very impressive woman. Executive track. Everyone will be dressed to impress." The irony of her concern almost made me laugh. Instead, I took a deep breath. "What technology company does she work for?" "Oh, something about health systems. Horizon something. I don't recall exactly. Noah says they're very important in their field." My heart skipped a beat. Horizon Health Technologies, the company currently negotiating to acquire Nextech for hundreds of millions of dollars. This couldn't be a coincidence. "Mom, do you know Hannah's last name?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Walsh. Hannah Walsh." "Why do you ask?" "Hannah Walsh." The name wasn't familiar from our acquisition talks, but Horizon was a massive company with thousands of employees. Still, the connection was unsettling. After hanging up, I immediately called Chloe. "You're not going to believe this," I said, explaining the situation. "My brother is engaged to someone from Horizon." "That's quite a coincidence," Chloe replied carefully. "Do you think it will complicate the acquisition?" "I don't know, but I need to find out who she is before that dinner." A quick LinkedIn search revealed that Hannah Walsh was Horizon's Director of Strategic Acquisitions. She would absolutely be involved in the Nextech deal, probably leading it. And in a few weeks, we would be sitting across from each other at my brother's engagement dinner, where everyone believed I was an underemployed tech support worker. The universe, I realized, had a truly twisted sense of humor. The pressure from my family intensified as the dinner approached. My mother called twice more about my attire. My father left a voicemail reminding me to bring something impressive about my career to discuss with Hannah's parents, who are very accomplished people. A week before the dinner, I received the most painful call yet. "Alara, I need to discuss something delicate," my mother began. Her lawyer voice, never a good sign. "Your father and I were talking with the Walshes last night. They asked about you and, well, Noah mentioned you were between jobs." A cold knot formed in my stomach. "I'm not between jobs, Mom." Well, that little computer help desk position wasn't exactly something to highlight. Noah was just trying to smooth things over. "The point is, Hannah's father knows someone at Apple who might be hiring entry-level IT staff. Isn't that wonderful? We could finally get you on a proper career track." It all hit me like a tidal wave, the casual dismissal, the assumption I needed rescuing, the complete, infuriating lack of curiosity about my life. My blood boiled, a silent, furious rage. "Mom, I appreciate the thought, but I'm satisfied with my current position." My voice was tight with controlled emotion. "Don't be proud, Alara. This is a real opportunity. We all have to start somewhere." After hanging up, I called Brooke, my childhood friend who had recently moved back to Chicago. Unlike my family, Brooke had always supported my ambitions, even when she didn't fully understand them. Over the years, she'd become one of the few people who knew the truth about Nextech. "They set you up for a pity job interview." Brooke's indignation on my behalf was exactly what I needed. "While you're in the middle of a $200 million acquisition deal? That's rich, even for your parents." The worst part is the woman my brother is marrying is literally the person negotiating to buy my company, I said, laughing at the sheer absurdity of it all. And no one in my family has any idea. So, what are you going to do at this dinner? She asked. Show up in jeans and a hoodie like they expect, or arrive in full CEO mode and watch their jaws drop? I considered the question seriously. Neither. I'm just going to be myself. No pretense, no big revelation, no games, just dignity. Brooke raised her eyebrows. That's very mature of you. 5 years of therapy will do that, I replied with a small smile. Besides, I'm done trying to prove anything to them. If they find out, they find out. I'm not going to hide, but I'm not going to perform either. The night before the dinner, Horizon's final acquisition offer arrived. $215 million, with conditions that would keep Chloe and me at the company for at least 3 years post-acquisition. We were officially on the verge of becoming centimillionaires. As I selected a simple but elegant black dress for the dinner, I felt strangely calm. Whatever happened tomorrow night, I knew my worth now. No one could take that away from me. Bluebird Restaurant lived up to its reputation. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over blue velvet banquettes and tables set with gleaming silver. A wall of windows overlooked the Chicago River, the city lights reflecting in its dark surface. I arrived exactly on time, not early enough to help with arrangements as my mother had suggested, nor late enough to make an entrance, just punctual and dignified, like the businesswoman I was. The hostess led me to a private dining room where my family had already gathered. My father stood by the bar in animated conversation with an older man I assumed was Mr. Walsh. My mother fussed with place cards at the long table, rearranging them for optimal social engineering. Noah spotted me first. "Liv, you made it." He crossed the room and embraced me with the easy confidence of someone who has never questioned his place in the world. "Come meet Hannah." She stood by the window, tall and elegant in a burgundy dress, her dark hair swept into a sophisticated updo. I recognized her immediately from Horizon's executive page, though I'd never seen her in person during our negotiations, which had been handled through intermediaries until this final stage. "Hannah, this is my sister, Alara," Noah said with the slightly apologetic tone he always used when introducing me to his accomplished friends. "It's so nice to finally meet you," Hannah said warmly, extending her hand. "Noah talks about you all the time." I wondered what exactly he said, but smiled and shook her hand. "Congratulations on your engagement. I'm happy for you both." My mother appeared at my elbow. "Alara, I see you found something to wear." "That's nice." The pause spoke volumes. "We've put you next to Cousin Margaret. You always got along with her." They'd seated me far from the important guests. Naturally. Dinner began with champagne and toasts. My father spoke first, raising his glass to Noah and Hannah. "To my son, who has made us proud every day of his life," he said, his voice thick with emotion, and to Hannah, a brilliant, accomplished woman worthy of him. We couldn't ask for a better addition to our family. My mother's toast followed, a carefully crafted speech that highlighted Noah's achievements from his first science fair victory to his recent promotion to chief resident. She concluded with, "And now he's found a partner equally dedicated to excellence," to Noah and Hannah. As glasses clinked, I noticed Hannah looking at me with a slight furrow in her brow, as if trying to place me in some context beyond Noah's underachieving sister. The first course arrived, and conversation flowed around me. Cousin Margaret asked about my job situation with the delicate approach of someone inquiring about a terminal illness. "I'm in health technology," I said simply. "Database management." Not untrue, just dramatically understated. "Oh, that's nice," she replied with the same inflection my mother had used earlier. "Is there room for advancement in that field?" Before I could answer, my uncle leaned across the table. "Alara, Noah tells us you might have a lead on a position at Apple. That would be quite a step up for you." I took a slow sip of water. "I'm actually quite satisfied with my current work." My father overheard and joined in. Alara, there's no shame in accepting help to get your foot in the door somewhere respectable. We all want to see you succeed. From across the table, I noticed Hannah staring at me more intently now. Recognition was dawning in her eyes. Alara, she said during a lull in conversation, her voice cutting through the ambient noise. Forgive me, but is your last name Sterling? The table fell silent. Noah looked confused. Of course it is. She's my sister. Hannah's eyes widened. You're Alara Sterling from Nextech. And there it was. The moment I both dreaded and secretly anticipated for years. Yes, I said simply. Hannah set down her fork with a small clink against the fine china. Wait, you're the founder? The CEO, Alara Sterling? The one, she stopped herself, suddenly aware of the public setting. Noah laughed nervously. Hannah, I think you're confusing Alara with someone else. My sister works in tech support or something. No, Hannah said slowly, looking directly at me, her voice firm. Your sister is the founder and CEO of Nextech, the healthcare communication platform that's revolutionizing patient care across the country. The company, my firm, is currently in final negotiations to acquire for over $200 million. The silence that followed was absolute. My father froze with his wine glass halfway to his lips. My mother's hand fluttered to her pearl necklace. Noah's mouth, literally, hung open. Is this true? My father finally managed, his voice faint. I met his gaze steadily. Yes, Chloe Davies and I founded Nextech 6 years ago. We currently employ over 70 people and serve more than 300 healthcare facilities nationwide. But why wouldn't you tell us? My mother looked genuinely bewildered. Before I could answer, Hannah continued, her professional demeanor giving way to genuine enthusiasm. Your platform reduced medication errors at Boston General by 62% in the first year alone. The interface design revolutionized how doctors access patient information. We've been trying to develop something similar for years, but your solution is light years ahead. It's why we're willing to pay such a premium to acquire you. My family stared at me as if seeing a stranger. In many ways, they were. $200 million? My father's voice was barely a whisper. Hannah nodded. The acquisition is set to close next week, pending final approval. She turned to me with a slightly embarrassed smile. I had no idea you were Noah's sister. Your company profile just shows Alara with no photo, and our teams have been handling the negotiations. I prefer to maintain a low profile, I said. The understatement of the century. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of shocked questions and awkward revelations. Relatives who had pitted me an hour before now asked for investment advice. My mother mentioned 3 times that she always knew I had a special talent with computers. My father claimed he'd told colleagues about his daughter, the tech entrepreneur, for years. Noah alone remained relatively quiet, processing the fact that his struggling little sister was about to sell her company for a sum that dwarfed his entire expected lifetime earnings as a physician. Through it all, I maintained my composure, answering questions politely, but without the desperate desire for approval that had defined so much of my earlier life. The validation I'd once craved now felt hollow in the face of their sudden opportunistic pride. As the evening wound down, Hannah pulled me aside. I'm sorry if I created an awkward situation. Don't apologize, I smiled genuinely. It's been a long time coming. For what it's worth, she added, your reputation in the industry is extraordinary. People call you the ghost genius. Now I understand why you kept such a low profile. As we said our goodbyes, my mother clutched my arm. We need to talk soon, Alara. Properly talk about everything. I nodded, knowing the conversation was inevitable, but no longer fearing it. We will. Walking to my car, I felt lighter somehow. The secret I'd carried for years was finally in the open. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms, secure in the knowledge of what I had built. The first text arrived before I even got home from the dinner. My mother, we need to talk. Brunch tomorrow. The Drake Hotel at 11. By morning, my phone was flooded. Relatives suddenly remembered they'd always supported my computer interests. Cousins who hadn't spoken to me in years asked about investment opportunities. Noah sent 3 separate messages, each more confused than the last, culminating in a simple, "Why didn't you tell me?" I replied only to my parents, agreeing to brunch. Some conversations, I knew, needed to happen in person. The Drake's dining room was elegant and discreet, perfect for the difficult conversation ahead. My parents were already seated when I arrived, both dressed impeccably, as if for an important business meeting rather than family brunch. Alara, my father stood awkwardly, oscillating between his usual perfunctory greeting and something more befitting a daughter he'd just discovered was wildly successful. He settled on an uncomfortable hug. "You look well." My mother was less restrained. "Darling, we have so much to discuss. I've been reading all about Nextech this morning. The innovation awards, the funding rounds, the user growth statistics. Why would you keep all this from us? We're your family." I took a deep breath. "I think you know why." "I certainly don't," my father replied, his tone defensive. "We've always supported your pursuits." The waiter arrived with coffee, giving me a moment to compose my thoughts. Once he left, I looked directly at my parents. "You never took my interest in technology seriously. Every time I tried to share my work with you, it was dismissed as a hobby, something to get out of my system before finding a real career. After a while, it was easier to stop trying." "That's not fair," my mother protested. "We just wanted what was best for you. The technology field seemed so uncertain. What you wanted was for me to follow a path you understood and approved of," I corrected gently. "When I chose differently, you treated it as failure." My father leaned forward. "We always knew you had potential, Alara. We were just pushing you to excel." "No," I said firmly. "You were pushing me to conform. There's a difference." "Well, clearly it worked out," he countered. "Look at what you've accomplished. Perhaps our pushing helped motivate you." It was the exact response I'd feared and expected. Taking credit for success they'd played no role in. Rewriting history to cast themselves as supportive mentors rather than dismissive critics. "Dad, do you remember telling me to get a real job at Thanksgiving 5 years ago? Or suggesting I take an administrative position at Noah's hospital because my own work wasn't viable? Mom, do you remember arranging a pity job interview for me just last week?" My mother had the grace to look embarrassed. "We were concerned about you. You never shared any details about your work." "How are we supposed to know?" "You could have asked," I said. "Really asked. With genuine interest, not just waiting for an answer that confirmed what you already believed about me." The conversation continued through Eggs Benedict and mimosas. Painful, but necessary. My mother vacillated between defensiveness and attempts at reconciliation. My father, true to form, tried to maintain his authority by suggesting he'd always seen my hidden potential. "Your brother always spoke highly of your intelligence," my mother offered, as if Noah's approval legitimized me retroactively. "I know you both love me," I said finally. "But love without respect or understanding isn't enough. I needed you to see me for who I actually was, not who you wanted me to be." We parted with tentative plans to have dinner the following week, a first step toward whatever our relationship might become. It wasn't the cathartic resolution of a movie scene, but real healing rarely is. Noah appeared at my apartment that evening, unannounced. "I brought wine," he said awkwardly, holding up an expensive bottle of Cabernet. "Figured we might need it." I let him in, somewhat surprised by his initiative. My sleek penthouse with its floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist design was a far cry from the struggling existence he'd imagined for me. Nice place, he said, looking around. Really nice. Thanks. We settled in my living room, glasses of wine in hand, the Chicago skyline glittering beyond the windows. So, he began. I've been an ass. The blunt admission startled a laugh out of me. Not entirely. No, I have. I bought into this whole narrative about you struggling or being lost or whatever. I never really asked you about your work, like actually asked. No, you didn't. He swirled his wine thoughtfully. I think I liked being the successful one, the one who made mom and dad proud. It was comfortable. His honesty disarmed me. I'd expected excuses or the same revisionist history our parents had attempted. For what it's worth, he continued, I'm sorry, and I'm really impressed by what you've built. Hannah hasn't stopped talking about your platform. Apparently, you're some kind of genius. I just built something I believed in, I said. Something that actually helps people, like what I try to do as a doctor, he nodded. Just on a much larger scale, apparently. We talked for hours, really talked, perhaps for the first time as adults. He asked genuine questions about Nextech, about the challenges of building a company from nothing. I asked about his medical work and found myself actually interested in his answers when they weren't presented as evidence of his superiority. As he was leaving, he paused at the door. Hannah really likes you. You know, she was mortified about outing you at dinner, but she's hoping you two might become friends, especially if you'll be working together after the acquisition. I'd like that, I said, surprised to find I meant it. Over the next few weeks, as the acquisition moved toward completion, my family relationships entered unfamiliar territory. My parents oscillated between genuine attempts to understand my work and reflexive behaviors born from decades of seeing me through a particular lens. There were uncomfortable lunches where my father tried to give me business advice and awkward phone calls where my mother asked if I was eating properly despite my busy CEO schedule. But there were also moments of genuine connection. My father asked to see Nextech's platform and listened attentively as I explained its features. My mother admitted that she'd never really understood technology, but was proud of what I'd created. Small steps, but meaningful ones. The most unexpected development was Hannah's role in bridging the gap between my worlds. As both my future sister-in-law and my professional colleague, she had a unique perspective on the Sterling family dynamics. Your parents are trying, she told me over coffee one afternoon. They just don't have the vocabulary for this version of success. They're learning a new language. A language you seem to speak fluently, I observed. She smiled. I grew up with parents who measured worth by academic degrees and professional titles. It took me years to realize there are many paths to a meaningful life. Maybe I can help translate a bit. And she did, gently educating my family about the tech industry, contextualizing my achievements in terms they could understand, and occasionally giving them a reality check when they slipped into old patterns. Her efforts weren't always successful, but they helped ease the transition to our new reality. The acquisition closed on schedule, transforming Chloe and me into centimillionaires overnight. The press release mentioned both our full names and included professional photos. My first public acknowledgement as Nextech's co-founder. The ghost genius was finally stepping into the light. 6 months after my brother's engagement dinner, life had found a new rhythm. The Nextech acquisition had closed successfully, and I now led the innovation division at Horizon Health Technologies. Our platform was being implemented in hospitals across 3 continents, with Chloe overseeing international expansion. My office overlooked the Chicago River, its waters reflecting the changing seasons. Today, spring sunshine glinted off its surface as I finished a conference call with our development team in Singapore. A text from Hannah interrupted my workflow. Reminder, dinner at your place tonight. I'm bringing that wine you liked. Noah says he's making dessert, so expect emergency cupcakes from the bakery when he inevitably burns something. I smiled. These casual family dinners had become a monthly tradition, something I would have found unimaginable a year ago. Sometimes my parents joined. Sometimes it was just the three of us. But the easy camaraderie that had developed between Hannah, Noah, and me was something I treasured. Working with Hannah had accelerated our friendship. Her straightforward approach to business matched my own, and her insights into my family dynamics proved invaluable. She understood my parents in ways I sometimes couldn't, identifying the insecurities beneath their controlling behaviors. "Your dad didn't dismiss your tech career because he thought you'd fail," she observed once. "He dismissed it because he didn't understand it. And Arthur Sterling hates not understanding things." My relationship with Noah had transformed most dramatically. Without the hierarchy of successful doctor and struggling sister, we discovered common ground. Both of us were driven, detail-oriented perfectionists who genuinely wanted to improve healthcare. Now we traded ideas instead of judgments. My parents were trying. That was the most accurate description. We had established new boundaries. My mother no longer offered unsolicited advice about my appearance, and my father made visible efforts to ask questions about my work without immediately suggesting improvements. Our weekly Sunday calls were no longer exercises in evasion, but actual conversations. Not always easy ones, but real nonetheless. My mother had even visited Nexteca's offices, her initial awkwardness giving way to genuine pride as employees greeted me with obvious respect. The healing wasn't just external. The acquisition had given me the freedom to focus on my own well-being in ways I'd neglected during the startup grind. Regular therapy sessions with Dr. Albright helped me process the complicated emotions around my family's sudden recognition. "You spent years protecting yourself from their judgment," she noted during one session. "Now that protection isn't necessary in the same way, but the habits remain. It's okay to let some of those walls down, gradually." I'd taken her advice, not just with family, but in building a broader support network. Brooke remained my oldest and most trusted friend, but I'd also connected with other women entrepreneurs through mentoring programs and industry events. The isolation that had characterized my early career had given way to a chosen family of people who understood both my work and my journey. One particular source of joy was mentoring young women in technology. Once a month, I hosted workshops for high school girls interested in STEM fields, sharing not just technical knowledge, but the emotional resilience needed to pursue unconventional paths. "My parents think computer science is just a hobby," one 15-year-old told me, echoing my own experience. "They want me to become a lawyer like my mom." "What do you want?" I asked. "To build things that matter," she replied without hesitation. "Then build them," I said, sharing resources and encouragement. "Find the people who believe in your vision, even if they're not your family, and keep the door open for your parents to understand later." That evening, as I prepared for dinner with Noah and Hannah, I reflected on how far I'd come. The external validation I'd once craved had arrived in abundance: industry recognition, financial success, even family acknowledgement. But I discovered something more valuable along the way: the ability to validate myself. Noah arrived first, bearing both a homemade chocolate cake that looked surprisingly edible and the emergency bakery cupcake Hannah had predicted. "I hedged my bets," he admitted with a laugh. "But I'm getting better. Only set off the smoke alarm once this time." Hannah arrived with wine and news about their wedding plans. As we gathered around my dining table, the conversation flowed easily from work to wedding to family gossip. "Mom's actually reading books about technology startups," Noah reported. "I found tech founders under 30 on her nightstand last week." "Better late than never," I said without bitterness. Later, as we moved to the living room with coffee and dessert, Hannah asked a question that caught me off guard. "Do you ever wish things had been different? That your family had recognized your potential from the beginning?" I considered carefully before answering. Of course, sometimes. It would have been easier, less painful. But I'm not sure I would have built the same resilience or clarity of purpose. I learned to believe in myself when no one else did. That's a powerful foundation. Plus, Noah added with newfound self-awareness, if mom and dad had been fawning over your tech career, I might have grown up even more insufferable than I was. We laughed, the sound floating out over the city lights. The journey wasn't over. Family relationships are never truly fixed, but rather continuously evolving. There would be more difficult conversations, more moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. But something fundamental had shifted. I no longer needed my family to see my worth in order to know it myself. That freedom allowed me to accept their growing appreciation without desperation. To forgive past dismissals without forgetting the lessons they taught me, and to build relationships based on who we were becoming rather than who we had been. Success isn't measured by recognition, but by impact. By that standard, Nextech had succeeded beyond my wildest dreams, improving patient outcomes and healthcare communication for thousands. And I had succeeded in creating a life authentic to my values and vision, regardless of who approved. As for family, the one we're born into and the one we choose, perhaps the greatest lesson was that relationships can transform when we bring our whole authentic selves to them. Not everyone will celebrate your path, but those worth keeping in your life will eventually learn to see you clearly. The next day, as I looked out over the city from my office window, I felt gratitude for the journey. Complicated as it had been, the path forward wasn't perfectly clear, but I was walking it on my own terms, creating success by my own definition. And that, more than any acquisition deal or family validation, was the real achievement. It's a strange journey, finding yourself against the world. Have you ever felt like you had to build something in silence, just to prove your worth? Tell me your story in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to hear if you've walked a similar path.